And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. We are back with the final not so deep dive of the season. And this time it's DC United. We save some may say the worst for last, some may say the best for last. I
No,
guess it depends on who you ask. But we are joined with the best of the best in DC coverage. We're joined by James from DC UK. How you doing, buddy?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on yet again. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man, super excited. We got to chat again. Like we were talking about, it's been 12 months, and we had so
Yeah.
much fun last time. I'm really glad we got to bring it back. But before we jump into it, of course, we got to jump into Scarf of the Week. So you got a couple cool ones behind you. What are you rocking up there?
Yeah. So up here, I hope I've pointed them to right. So on this side, I've got the Chico Stands scarf, which I think I showed last time I was
Yeah.
on. One scarf that I got given to me through the Barra Brava, I think it was, or was it the District Ultras? One of the two. And then I've got the classic DC United marble scarf over here. And I've actually, and I didn't tell you this earlier, but I've got another scarf over here,
Ooh,
which is the District Ultra scarf, which is this one here.
very nice. I like that.
So yeah, to be fair, I've had all three since for a very long time. I do
Ah,
have a cherry blossom scarf somewhere knocking around. I don't know where
nice.
that is. That might be in the house, but
That's a
yes,
good one. That's a
yes.
great design too. I like that one.
Oh,
I have only not worn scarves in one episode, but I'm gonna have to make it two because this is the
mm.
one I'm not gonna put on. I can't do it. I'm actually not even taking it out of the wrapper, but I did pick up a
Oh,
scarf
mate,
from DC because
nice.
I'm committed to having one of everyone.
Yeah,
Um, at some point when I get my wall back, it will go
yep.
up on the wall, but it'll be off to the side and hiding in the corner because I just can't. But for the pod, I will get it. But for my own personal allegiances, I can't do it. I'm
You can't do it.
sorry. Yeah, I just
No,
can't
I
do it.
understand. I understand. I don't agree, but I understand.
That yeah. So and then now we got somebody who say
Oh,
hello. Yes, I know.
hello.
You're so good. I know you missed me.
Ah,
Nah. So listen, we're gonna chat all about 2025 here. It's gonna be a great
yeah.
time, but we should talk a little bit about 2024 so we know how we got here because 2024 it was just another year that just was for DC,
Yeah.
right? It has felt like that way for like 5 seasons, I think, for me, at least for me, right? Where they sign a ton of players in the offseason. It takes a while for them to gel. They try some new things, they try a new coach, they're in the hunt until the last day, they miss out and rinse and repeat. And that was the case in 2024. Troy Lesesne comes over from Red Bull, remains in charge going into 2025.
Yeah.
They finished 10th place. They missed the play-in game on goal differential after an Atlanta miracle. They lost in the round of 32 in the Leagues Cup to Mazatlan. And in 2025, all they got to worry about is US Open Cup, right? And MLS, of course.
Yes.
But your thoughts on 24 as it was?
Well, we had highs. We had a massive high with Christian Benteke being the Golden Boot winner, which was unbelievable. Somehow the Golden Boot winner was part of a team that didn't make the playoffs, but he was brilliant and an absolute diamond for us. He was great, and I loved watching him play. And I just don't get how teams just couldn't find a way to handle him. It was just like he plays the same way week in, week out. Yet nobody was able to handle him in any way, shape, or form. And he just was just fantastic. But you're right, it was another one of those years. But our expectations going into the 2024 season was very minimal. We weren't expecting to get into the playoffs.
Right.
So the fact that we actually only missed out on the playing round anyway on the last day of the season was actually a big thing for us. We were actually quite pleased with that.
Mhm.
And don't get me started on the Atlanta Miracle because that goal. I'm just going to say there was a handball in there somewhere.
Yep, I don't disagree.
Yeah, and yeah, that would have meant that we would have been in there, and that would have been an absolute miracle for us to have been in there. But it was a season of change, and yeah, at the end of 2024, this past off season has been a ridiculous amount of change, which we're absolutely going to be talking about.
Mhm.
But yeah, 2024, we still had some old players from the previous regime of obviously the Ben Olsen, Wayne Rooney, Hernan Lasada, and obviously Dave Casper being the previous general manager. A lot of his deals were coming to an end, which they have done now, which is why we've seen so much change for 2025. So it does feel like 2024 was the kind of the last year of the old era, and we're now coming into the new era, which is what
Yeah.
I'm really excited about.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of there's always a lot of hype in the new season, right? But you mentioned it.
Oh,
There's a ton of change, a ton of change, and for what feels like the third season in a row, you guys have made at least 10, if not more, transitions in the off season. Who do you think is the
mm,
best guy in so far?
difficult to say because, as you rightly say, there's been just so many players that have been brought in. We've had a complete overhaul of the goalkeeping department. Literally, everyone's new in that arena. We've had new defenders, we've had some new midfielders, we've had new attackers. It's just been absolutely crazy. I think Kite Rolls, who we brought in from Hearts of Midlothian to give them the full title, from over in Scotland in the SPL, looks like he's going to be a really good player, especially from what's been reported in the pre-season matches. The goalkeeper from South Korea looks like he's going to be absolutely awesome. Then Hideo Kojima, that was a very, very good signing. Um, I'm amazed we actually pulled that, but Ali Mackay, brilliant deal from him there. Paglao bringing it in to have an extra Brazilian alongside Gabriel Pirani. I think if I'm going to have to pin it on one person, it's going to be Kojima,
Yeah.
just because the way that deal was done, and today in our last preseason match against Houston Dynamo, putting a hell of a performance in, getting the assist. I think he got a goal as well. So it's going to be great, absolutely great from him. I think he's going to be one of our best players and best additions for 2025.
Yeah, yeah. And when we did our preview with St. Louis, that we were like, oh, like who's your biggest loss? And Kojima was a no-brainer because I mean,
Yeah.
not only is he super super savvy on the ball and is a very good player, but he also is super super bright. I don't know if you follow him on Twitter, but his Twitter is full of coaching philosophy. Like he's taking his licenses to go be a coach as soon as he's done. So
Already?
yeah, he's
Wow.
already sitting in his I think he's doing some UEFA badges, some US coach. Like, he's got a whole bunch of them there, but I mean all of his stuff is like, yeah, this he retweets stuff from educators and other coaches who are like, yeah, I play this style because this is how I implement my system. And he'll respond to it and comment on it. It's like he sees the game. He's a student of the game. He's super, super bright. And I think he's a really, really bright future. So I love that move. I also
Yeah.
picked I picked the goalkeeper Kim
Yeah.
because this, I honestly, I'm gonna be straight with you. I didn't love a lot of it. Like there weren't a lot of moves you made that were like, oh, this guy's gonna be a baller. I think there's a lot of depth
Mm.
pieces. I think there were a lot of MLS experience pieces, a lot of pieces that you're kind of rolling the dice on. But you have had suspect goalkeeping, and I've said this for a long time. DC's goalkeeping department has been suspect since the Wayne Rooney days, really. And to see somebody come in who has a lot of experience, a very high ceiling, and is kind of already in the international picture, I think is going to be a really, really good like foundation for you to lay. Like I don't remember being sold on a goalkeeper in DC since Bill Hamid, and even Bill Hamid was like, "You're either
Yeah.
going to be out of your mind or you're going to give up 4 goals that you shouldn't give up." And usually he was only out of his mind when he played against Red Bull because why would he be good anywhere else? Because that's just the way it rolls.
Indeed. Well, honestly, from again what I've seen and what the actual front office have done for Kim has been brilliant. So didn't speak the language in any way, shape, or form. So they've brought someone in to help him learn the language, get him settled into the area as well. And it just feels like the front office are actually caring about
Yeah.
the club now. And it's not often that we can say things like that as fans. We're going to hate on our ownership groups just as a general thing. That's always going to be the case.
Right.
But we've had a lot of reasons to hate our ownership group over the years, with Jason Levy in charge. But it genuinely feels like, well, so the last 12 months, they've gone, we probably should do something about this and actually get the fans back on side. It's going to take a while. There's a lot of trust that's been lost from them,
Mhm.
but they're starting to put stuff in, and feels like we are starting to turn a corner, and there's causes for optimism around there.
Yeah, yeah, I would completely agree. I mean, it always starts at the front. It always starts at the top, right? So,
Hmm.
definitely something to keep an eye on. But with all these players in, you had to move players on, right? You couldn't just bring
Yeah,
15 players in and say, "Yep, we're gonna do it." Who do you think is the biggest loss so far?
I I'm not gonna say it's a player on
Yeah.
this one.
Okay.
Um, mainly because we've got rid of a lot of players, and it's weird to think that our two longest serving players is Christian Benteke and Jackson Hopkins. That's very weird.
Yeah.
That just shows the amount of changes that we've had over the last few years. But for me, right now, it's the fact that we traded Mateus Klick and we haven't regained that DP slot. Really,
Yep.
really, really annoyed about that one. I mean, we've kept obviously the majority of his salary, so we've got that for 2025. This is kind of like the final Dave Casper deal that is lingering around. He had an automatic extension enabled based on how many appearances he made in 2024. That just happened. I think it was like 10 or 15 games off the top of my head.
Yeah,
So
it was
I'm like,
very. I remember that. It was super. Like you, of course, were going to
oh,
hit that level.
yeah, for a DP player. Yes, that's going to happen. You're not going to leave a DP player on the bench. And yeah, the fact that we traded him, and then a couple of days later, there was the extra player that we could have bought out, and it's kind of like, oh, what?
Yeah. What are we doing, right?
Yeah.
Like
So for
it's not
me,
like you don't. It's not like you don't know that's coming. You're in the room when they make these decisions. Like
yeah, and it's just like, wow, just wow. Um, but to be fair, with the players that we got rid of, I kind of understand a lot of them.
yeah,
If I had to name a player, it would be Russell Canouse. I thought he was a great player, great depth player. He was just a bit expensive, but he was a great person as well. He was on the second to last episode of my podcast last season. I'm just going to plug that episode because it's a great episode. He was out of most of 2024 with ulcerative colitis, so we spoke about that and actually his journey from having the surgery at the start of the season, having to come out and actually say he's been suffering with that condition for a number of years. So actually his recovery had, I think it was 3 major surgeries, and then still played in 2024. Great episode. Go and check that out. But yeah, if I had to say, if there was a player, it'd be Russell Canouse. But the fact that we weren't able to regain that DP slot after trading Klick, that's the biggest loss for us.
yeah. I couldn't agree more. And that is exactly what I put. I went in and I was like, listen, there's not a ton that are going to like, oof, this is not really good. But man, you can't get rid of a designated player to a team in your own conference who knocked you out of the playoffs last year on goal differential and then be like, "Oh, but don't worry about it. We'll hold on to the DP tag. Like you guys keep building your team, we'll eat that." Like that's brutal. Especially in 2025. Like this is it like this is the
Yeah,
year where you have the money to go spend. You have the ability to move your roster the way you
so
want.
much money.
It makes no sense that you couldn't convince them to take that because you're right. At the end of the day, if that doesn't happen, boom, there's your buyout. Have a good one. Like, thanks for
Yeah,
being here. If we don't want you here, off you go. Right. And again, really, he's 34. Right. Fantastic last year. Don't get me wrong. He's a very good player, but he's not getting any younger. Father time's
no,
undefeated. If you don't want him there, wait 3 days and buy him out. I
yeah,
completely get it. So, listen, there's a lot of movement in this team. There's a lot of pieces that are moving around. Who is a player that we need to watch this year for DC United that may either take his step to the next level or be a
yeah.
breakout player?
Yeah, there's one name on this when I was thinking about this, and I did think long and hard about it,
Hmm.
but it always came back to the same player, and that's Gabriel Pirani.
I like it.
He had a really good solid end to the 2024. I thought he was great. I've been a big fan of his since he joined the club when he came over on loan, and then we exercised the buy option. I was just really pleased that happened, and I can see him really taking the next step. We've brought in that player in Buglao to help him settle down as well, and I just think we've now got the right pieces for him to really flourish. We got rid of Klick, who was trying to be that similar player to him. He can now be our new Lucho Acosta without the Lucho Acosta temperament
Yes.
as such. Because we know what Lucho Acosta is like when he doesn't get his way.
Yes.
And we've just seen it happen with his trade to Dallas.
I would say have fun, Dallas. Have fun with that one.
Yes. Yeah, great player. Just, you've got to keep him happy. And if you say no to a move that he wants, that's it. He's going to get his move. But no, I think he could be a real good good player for us this year, and I've predicted already that he's going to get double figure in assists already, and I think he could be double figure goals as well. I think he could be there. I genuinely believe he's going to have a great season. When
I'm
we've got
excited.
Benteke up top, and he stays fit all year,
Yeah.
that will just be that will be it. And
Yeah.
I genuinely believe he's going to have an awesome year.
I like it. I like that because I can feel the optimism, which I love. I had a few that popped my interest here. I think David Schnegg's going to be fantastic this year. Super
Yeah,
excited to watch him play. Garrison
yeah,
Tubbs, I have a lot of interest in.
yeah,
New Kai Rowles, maybe, bringing stability to the back line. But somebody that we had already hit on, Jose Kajima, for me, is going to be my player to watch
yeah,
because I liked what he did in St. Louis, but he very much couldn't take it to the next level because of where he was in the depth chart. I think he has the ability, like you mentioned, he's already showing very well for DC. And
yeah.
in Troy Lesesne's system, where those young, energetic, athletic center mids thrive, I very much think that he can step up into that level and be somebody where like,
Yeah.
okay, this is going to be a legit player for the next 3 5 years, or he's going to get sold. But
Yeah. And we've already had two really good St. Louis players in the past as well with Bartlett and Shroud.
yeah, yeah,
So
they
let's
were
just keep the pipeline going. Let's
yeah,
keep it
they
going.
they were so upset when they were like, we sold Shroud and didn't replace him, and you saw it last year. Like they missed him so badly, and I
Yeah.
said that was going to happen. So I do know ball, so that's pretty good. But that was a good pickup, and like I said, and players that fit Troy's system is I think a very very similar trend that we're seeing here. Like, yeah, you're turning over a lot of players, but I think Troy needs that because the system that he plays is so high energy, high level that you need those sorts of players who are going to be able to
Yeah.
be basically churned through, right?
Yeah. And we had, as I said before, we had a lot of players who were in from the previous regime. And we look at Martin Rodriguez and Christian Dahome, who we got rid of.
Mhm.
They were almost $2 million a piece.
Right. I remember that.
Oh, sorry, overall to the salary cap. And it's
Mhm.
just like by getting rid of those two players, we've just freed up so much space and so much
Right.
extra money that we can play around with. And it's just being able to get through those and then being able to replace them with the players that we actually need in the style that we want to play. It's been a really good off season for us, I think.
Yeah, I would say so as well. But with the offseason and the new players and the players gone, there are still some questions hanging over this team. No doubt about it. There's still some unknowns. And I kind of want to know for you, what's that one big question that you're still kind of curious about for this team?
What on earth is happening?
I love it. I love it.
It's just like I genuinely, it's just. I mean, I get what's happening, but if I'm putting myself not in my seat of position where I'm quite close to the team and quite close to the club and know what's happening. If I was just a casual fan, I'd be looking over and going, "What the hell is happening?" There's just so much churning going on,
Yeah.
and you'd be like, "Why are we doing this? And where are we going to end up at the end of the season?" That is the biggest question. It's just we are that big unknown. You could say we could be the dark horse and finish top of the East. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. As optimistic as I am,
You're not that
yeah,
optimistic.
no, no. Or we could finish bottom, which I
It's
don't
not
think
out
that's
of the
going to happen either. But
question.
it's just like we could literally finish anywhere, and
Yeah.
I don't think it would be a surprise to anyone.
That's totally fair. And honestly, that's MLS to a T, especially the Eastern
Yeah,
Conference. There's always so much going on in there that you're always going to have teams that jump from, bottom to top or top to bottom by losing a couple
yeah,
players 'cause it's that close. For me, I'm very curious about who's going to help Benteke score goals. And I know you mentioned Gabriel Priani, but
yeah,
last season he had 23 of DC's 52 goals. For those doing the
yeah,
math, that's almost half. So
yeah,
the problem with that is the next closest was 6. It wasn't like 23 and 15 and 10 and then 8 and then no, it went
yeah.
23 and 6.
6.
So
Yeah,
he's very dominant in the air. He's a very good finisher, but somebody's gonna have to figure out how to help him out, or they're going to be in trouble because guess what? Defenses, they watch tape and they learn eventually, right? You're going to find somebody who's going to say, not today, Christian. And then you
yeah,
are going to be like, well, I guess we're going to be shut out today because that's about it. Now, if Priani steps up, that'd be very interesting. But as of right now, there's not like another striker that you can look at, like, oh, this is going to be big. It's
No,
I'd be worried.
I totally get that, and we saw it on a few occasions last year when either Benteke was suspended or he did have a couple of other games out injured, and we're like, oh, what are we gonna do? We can't play long ball anymore. We don't have that big target man, and I mean there was times when it worked, and we ended up playing in that different way where we went to the right, we went to the left, and we played on the wings, and we started playing in a different style, and it worked from time to time because I think it caught teams off guard. But then after a couple of occasions that happened, and I'm like, okay, so if Benteke's not playing, they're going to play this way, so we could just shut the passing lanes off, and we're okay. And yeah, we do need a secondary goal scorer. I still don't know who that's going to be because Dominic Bargy is not a out and out goal scorer. I would be happy if we had two or three players who are getting 8, 9 goals. I think that would be okay.
Yeah.
But we need two or three of those players to be doing that. That needs to be Pagano, it needs to be Stroud, it needs to be Pirani. Those are the players that need to step up to get those extra goals for the 2025.
Yeah, wouldn't agree more. Well, you were alluding to this one before, and you said that you guys could finish anywhere. Unfortunately, on the designated players, anywhere is not precise enough. So we are going to ask you. I will give you. You can give it a range as long as the range is in between 1 and 15. You can give it a range, but where do you think DC is finishing this year?
I think for this year, as I've mentioned before, I'm an optimistic guy, just generally speaking, anyway. But this season, I feel like there's a heck of a lot more reasons to be more optimistic than it has been because we've got pretty much rid of all the old regime stuff. We've got the new regime. We've got players who fit the style. I believe we could be a solid 6th or 7th, slight outside for 5th. That's where I see anywhere between 5th and 7th for this year. I think we could do that. I think a playoff spot. I don't think we'll get through to the playoff final or win the Eastern Conference. I don't think we're there just yet. And for anyone who thinks that, they're probably delusional. That's usually me, but I'm going to slightly rein it in for once. But yeah, I think 5th, 6th, or 7th, I think it would be a really good season.
Hey, man, a 7th seed made the whole MLS Cup final last year, so I wouldn't hurt him too bad, For me, I don't love it. I don't love the so there are players that the problem is, and I mentioned this before, the players they've added do not make me jump over the moon as like, oh, these guys are going to be killer. I think they're good depth and they're good rotation pieces, but do they have the quality to compete at the top of the top outside of Benteke and Priani? I just don't know. Like I said, I like David Schnegg. I think he's gonna be very, very solid. I'm not sure about the back line. I think Kai Rowles should be okay. What does he truthfully bring? I have no idea. The goalkeepers, like you mentioned, completely rotated through. Not a fan of Luis Barraza in the slightest. I watched him in New York City for a long time. Don't think he's at the level that people expected of him when they traded up for him in the draft. Jordan Farr comes out of USL Championship. You never know about that one. And then you got a 21-year-old who's got a good ceiling, but you're not so sure. There are a couple of the attackers that you brought in that I'm not super sold on yet. Maybe Leal has a redemption. Peglo feels like he's just a big roll of the dice. Like his stats did not jump off the page to me as like, oh, this is going to be a U22 guy that's actually going to, maybe not. Actually, not U22. He's just a regular signing, but he's not going to jump off the page. To me, I've got him between 8 and 12. I think they're in the same place as they were last year. Right? They're going to play for the playing game. They're going to be in it until the last day, just like every year. But do they have enough to get over that hump? That's going to be the question. And part of me thinks that it comes in the summer. Part of me thinks in the winter. Part of me thinks that it comes not right now. Is it summer? No, it would be the summer. Yeah. Part of me thinks
it would be the summer.
Yeah. I forget all the time. I don't know. Everything's 80 degrees in Carolina. We don't do seasons.
It's just one season.
Exactly. But yeah, so I think between 8 and 12 is probably a good place for him for now. And again, we're recording this on the 15th of February at 4:31 Eastern Standard Time, PM. So, you know, things change. There's like 2 months left in the window. You can bring in anybody
Yeah.
still. Like it's that's my favorite part about doing these before the season is there's still like a month after the season. People can make changes. And then it's like, you put them in 12th and they finished third. What are you thinking? I'm like, yeah, they didn't sign 4 players before like the end of the window. Like, what do you want me to
Yeah.
do? But I
Yeah.
think I think right
It's
now 8 to 12 is good.
yeah. I mean, I it wouldn't surprise me if that happened. As I said, we could genuinely just finish anywhere. We could just suddenly become this amazing team. We've just suddenly had the right players and everything just Mateus clicks in there. I have to use
Nice,
that pun, I'm
nice. I
afraid.
like that.
Um, even though he's no longer one of our players and he can absolutely do one now. Um, but it could, and this is, as you said, it's the beauty of Major League Soccer. Anything goes. I mean, we look at Philadelphia. They normally are like a solid top half battling for MLS Eastern Conference.
Yeah,
Now they're struggling for the wooden spoon, and it's just like there's very little predictability
yeah.
in this
I would
league,
agree.
and that's what I love about this league. And I get people who come up to me and I talk about DC United, and I most of the time I talk to them about as if they're my first club,
Mhm.
rather than Middlesbrough, who are the team that I've supported the longest.
Yeah,
And they're like, why? I'm like, this league is beautiful. It's fast. There's goals. There's lots of goals, and you don't see the same team winning the league and the
yeah,
cup twice in a row.
yeah.
It hasn't happened for so long.
Yeah, it's
And
it's a complete anomaly.
I don't think there's, if I remember rightly, I don't think there's been a team who's ever won it 3 times in a row.
No, no, I don't think so.
And it's just like you get the Premier League and you get Man City who just have been winning it year in, year out for the last however many years. And you're like, it's a bit boring. Yes, you get the big stars and everything, but you know what's going to happen unless you're Nottingham Forest this year who are battling for a Champions League spot, which is that's a great story.
Right.
But MLS is just a brilliant league. I
Yeah.
love it.
Well, and that's what it's all about, right? And it's personal preference, right? I've given
Yeah.
I don't want to say I've given up, but I've stopped doing this whole argument like you don't know what you're missing. You got to come do that. When my friends come around and they're like, "Hey, you guys got to get an MLS." Like I will tell you, one of my buddies, you know, I don't think they're ever actually going to follow, but like I got one who's like, "Oh, I'll
Hmm.
follow Chicago," and one's going to follow at Cincinnati. I'm like, "Great, man! Like that's awesome. Like
Yep.
I'm glad if you truly do it, great." But I'm not also going to come online and start fighting with people because like, oh,
No.
ML like people are always in our comments like MLS is so bad. Why do you cover this league? It's like because you know, it's just what I do. Like it's what I like to do.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's personal preference, and we're so happy that we have people from all over the world who enjoy it, including yourself, James. So I want to thank you so much for being here and having this conversation with us about DC United. I want to give you a little bit of time to tell people who you are, what you do, and where to find you.
Yeah. So I do the DC UK podcast. I do not just the podcast itself, but I'm branching out into live streaming the matches as well. So watch alongs and things, which were great last year when I started doing it. So I'm going to continue doing that this year. I'm thinking about moving into streaming Football Manager eventually, whenever the new one comes out. But that's for another episode.
Yes, it is.
um, but yeah, that's something I'm thinking about doing as well. But if you want to follow me, I'm moving away from Twitter because of that. But I am still technically on there. And that's at DC United Kingdom. But I'm on predominantly Blue Sky now, DCUnitedKingdom.com. I've managed to use my domain on that. But also Instagram and Facebook at DCUKFC. So those are the best places to come and find me.
Perfect. And go give them the love because, you know, we don't have it's such an interesting perspective of somebody who isn't, you know, in the United States who's supporting this league. So it's like I said, the way you ended this episode was perfect because that perspective is very, very unique. And it's very nice to have other perspectives like that. But what I will say, and I think I told you this last year too, because we talked about Football Manager last year, is that you
Yeah.
need to meet my co-host Connor, who cannot be here again. He's working, but you need to meet him because he's a Football Manager nut, and we got a couple
Yep.
other friends who are in that too. So I know that they'd enjoy that. I'm sure. If you
Yeah.
guys are new here and this is the first time you're seeing us, this is the Designated Players. We are actually this is now the last one. So we have done 30 of these officially, previewing every team for the 2025 season with different content creators. It has been an absolute blast and very, very informative. So if you're curious about what the rest of the East looks like, what the West looks like, or you just want to hear our voice again, mine, anybody's, anybody, I'm here, right? Come follow us. And then during the year, we do MLS news. So we're going to have a video where we're going to react and share our thoughts on the new USL saga, as well as some of these players we keep talking out about the salary cap and things along that nature. And then we also do MLS history. So if you are a fan from the beginning of DC United, we have covered a ton of their early history. And then we also will go in and other teams, basically they're all fan created and fan chosen moments, and we cover them and tell the stories to the best of our abilities. So if you like some of that stuff, that's what we do. So give us a follow as well. Just look up the Designated Players wherever you get your podcasts, or on YouTube, or wherever, all your social medias, and we'll be there too. So James, I want to thank you so much again for being here. Listeners, thanks so much for listening to us, and we will see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.